Welcome, everybody, and thank you again for joining us for another town hall. We are Our Revolution Washington, and we are organizing a political revolution to challenge the power of the plutocrats and prioritize the needs of people and our planet. With your support, we are building a national grassroots movement of local groups powerful enough to win progressive issue fights, elect progressive champions, transform our political system, and get big money out of politics. Tonight, joining us on our town hall, we have I'm Rhonda Walker. I'm chair of Our Revolution Washington Bernie-Kratz Coalition. We have Tyler Vega. He is our founder of Washington Bernie-Kratz Coalition. Courtney Love, who is vice chair of OR Washington and chair of Pierce County, Our Revolution. And Amber King is our secretary of Our Revolution Washington and chair of Our Revolution King County. So thank you all for joining us tonight. In our program tonight is called Pandemic 2020. It's a mutual aid town hall. Our agenda, we're going to be talking about some COVID updates and some key resources, some personal protective equipment, organizing pods or precinct neighborhoods, and then resources like issues, budget, and remaining actions. So that's what we were coming to before. So just for an update on what is going on with COVID-19, we don't want to give you too many specifics because we have the CDC and everything up there. It's just so for an easy kind of update. COVID-19 spreads primarily from person to person. So droplets released when someone's sick or sneezes or coughs can land on mouths or noses and people nearby. So in close contact with someone sick, like hugging and shaking their hands, and it's showing to stay in the air for a bit amount of time. So we're going to be talking about masks and things like that down further in the program. COVID-19 mainly spreads from person, we just said that piece. On the objects, how to keep those clean, and then how to reduce your risks of infection. Making sure you cover your cough, of course, washing your hands consistently, staying 6 feet away from each other, preferably just staying in the house wherever possible, which I know that you guys have been hearing back to back. A couple of things I wanted to bring to you guys is to show you some links that I find very helpful. This one here is from the Washington State Corona website, the Gov one. So it's total statewide as of today, around 4:10 today. Total statewide in Washington State, we have 6,966 cases, and we have 284 deaths. Our total negative tests statewide is 79,418. Everything we talk about tonight and plus some, you're going to find links down below in the description on YouTube, and we'll have them out in other places we're streaming as well. The other one that I wanted to note, because there are some live maps out there and stuff too, but I found this one, which I thought was really interesting. It's the vulnerability map. So it's not necessarily where cases are high at. This really takes into account of the population in each county. So right now, our high risk, our counties in Washington State is Jefferson County, Lewis County, Klickitat County, and Pend Oriole County. Those are the highest risk areas. And then second to that would be Grays Harbor, Grant County, Adams County, and Stevens County. So we're talking about.
I do want to interject. It's Ponderay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have family there.
I appreciate it. Ponderay County. Thank you. I should have known, but yes. So these again doesn't mean that there's a high number of infected people there. These are the ones that are most vulnerable that could succumb to not only the disease but economic hardships. So I would like us to really come together and try to figure out what we can do for these most vulnerable communities, especially for the ones that aren't as vulnerable as we go along in our program, but those links are in the description here. We're talking today about the one piece is the 5 principles for just COVID-19 relief and stimulus. So I'm going to name the 5 principles that they're talking about here. It's health is the top priority for all people with no exceptions. Period. Every single person. Number 2 is provide economic relief directly to the people instead of trying to think that the trickle down from uh, helping our corporations will come down to the people. 3 is rescue workers and communities, not corporate executives. So we want to make sure that we highlight the rescue workers, taking care of them and the vulnerable communities. Number 4 is make a down payment on regenerative economy while preventing future crisis. So we want to be able to take care of things now so we don't end up having a bigger crisis in the future. And then protect our democratic processes while protecting each other. Um, Within this link, you're going to find that there's a ton of organizations that have signed on to this relief and stimulus push that we're getting behind. So please go and take a look at that. But those are the 5 main principles of mutual aid that's needed. And the one here too is the response to one existential crisis must not fuel another. So we do really want to make sure that this crisis doesn't end up exploding into a bigger one. What we're going to be talking about later, and what I really liked about Bernie coming out for is he came out and says, I support workers who strike, conduct a sick out, or participate in a walk off to support our collective health and safety amid this pandemic, period. So I saw this of him giving a go ahead to, I'll back whatever you, the people, need to do, right? He's always about not me, us. He's saying, hey, look, us, I'm behind you. So thank you, Bernie, for giving some of us the strength in wanting to push forward on some of these things that we're really needing to delve into. Some things I've found and that we're finding is really building up is people coming together and coming with demands on what the people need to be able to survive through this, and also plans of possible strikes if things don't go to plan. One I found that was really great is called the Rural Workers Rescue Plan. And what they're demanding, and what I agree with, is one is the 2,000 monthly emergency cash assistance to every adult in Washington state. So 2,000 every month, no matter what your economic priorities are right now, or your economic status, I should say. Number 2 is real relief and protections for all workers. Number 3 is public health and healthcare guaranteed. So every single person, and we will talk about how we're going to be pushing that aspect in Washington state to get every person covered. Housing security guaranteed, and then investing in our local economy to keep small business, owner operators, and working families afloat. So those are some demands, and this Rural Workers Rescue Plan is working on that. It's a great group there. If you haven't heard of this yet, there is a call for a rent strike, and we wanted to give you resources to that. With our rents, so the hard truth is 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 58% can't weather a $500 unexpected expense. 20% of Americans already experience reduced hours or unemployment as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is a petition that is linked down below. We would like you to sign that. It's really about asking and stating that you need to suspend the rent, suspend mortgages and utility payments during this coronavirus crisis. So get on there, sign the petition. There's over probably close to 2 million now. people that have signed up for this project. Once you sign up there, you will get contacted, and we'll get you linked up to the right groups working within your local area to help you walk through that process. We're not going to delve deep into it tonight because there is some information out there on there, a video. You can find it in UpHill Media. But we really are bringing it down to, not we, but the Rent Strike people 2020 are bringing it down to your local area and getting meetings going for you guys to connect to the proper groups that are working on that. Another big thing I saw, and I think we need to get everybody to get behind, is the Stand with Nurses and Healthcare Workers. There's a petition going out there that they're also wanting people to sign on to, and these are their demands. So one is follow workplace safety guidelines issued by the Center for Disease Control and provide adequate personal protection equipment, including masks, gloves, gowns, and eye protection. 2 is provide scrubs and a secure location to change uniforms so they don't have to bring their soiled uniforms home and into the community. 3 is help them meet new challenges with the pay increase of $5 an hour in recognition of their work and the increased risks to themselves and their families during the pandemic. Number 4 is provide paid leave for any worker whom the employer does not permit to work due to the exposure of COVID-19 with no loss of pay or accrued time off. Number 5 is to offer accommodations, so either telework or alternative assignments, or paid leave with no loss of pay or accrued time off for any worker in at-risk groups older than 60, pregnant, or with an underlying medical condition. And then finally, number 6 is to provide prompt notice from employers of known exposures, assessment of exposure risk, access to testing, and whether a worker is placed on paid leave. So again, that link is in the comments as well. We need to do everything we can to protect our frontline workers, especially our health workers. As you know, if they become too sick or they're unable to perform duties, that leaves a lot of us without care.
I'd just like to jump in that we could add grocery workers, farmers, and manufacturers to that in need of help as well, because they are now frontline workers and they are not receiving hazard pay.
Correct. That is very, very true. I also want to in the link, you know, I know you just brought up the grocery workers and things like that, but it's a good time to talk about this. There is a video. It is from a physician. He walks through the process of bringing in your groceries, like safe food handling from grocery shopping, but not only that, about fast food and takeout as well. As you know, there's a lot of restaurants still open that are doing takeout. And I would love for everybody to watch that. It is a very thorough step-by-step process on how to keep your groceries and your house clean, bringing these items in. And then one more piece before we get to this next one. When we're talking about strikes and we're talking about, you know, coming together, as you guys know, unions are really important in helping fight for safe, not only safety, but compensation and all of that. So what we're trying to push is everybody to join up with IWW. It's Industrial Workers of the World. They're called the Wobblies. It's one place I think that we can all come together and behind each other and out with one big voice. And IWW is only growing right now. Talking about healthcare and what we can do, especially when we talked about earlier about Washington State, what can we do here? I'm actually going to bring in Courtney again real quick. Courtney is on the board of Whole Washington, and we have a solution right now that we can push to Governor Inslee and demand healthcare for all. Can you go ahead and talk about that piece, Courtney?
Yes, whole Washington has a bill in the Senate of the Washington State Legislature right now, Senate Bill 5222. It is a proofed bill. It has been, it has a mode of payment already installed. How we're going to pay for it is already written into the bill. Gerald Friedman is the economist who helped with that. The Department of Revenue has already reviewed and approved this bill, which is a step that no other initiative or bill has had in the past. And it is ready to go. Our governor can sign it now. And so we are asking everybody to call, text, email. I think it'd be fun to fax, just because of the noises and the paper generation. But we need to put pressure on Governor Inslee right now to pass Senate Bill 5222, the whole Washington Health Trust Bill, as an emergency act. This would cover the most vulnerable Washingtonians immediately. That means everyone experiencing layoffs and furloughs would have comprehensive health care, and in most cases, the coverage would be better than their previous plan, all free at the point of service. We need real change to address the dire situation ahead, and we must consider bold ideas. For those who are unfamiliar with Whole Washington, you can go to wholewashington.org, I believe, double checking. Yep, wholewashington.org, and you can find a savings estimator, what the plan would cost you once we're not thinking about emergency plans. But and there's a frequently asked questions page, and there's the whole bill is accessible through the website. It is the place to find all the answers to your questions. But right now, we need you to be contacting Governor Inslee and demanding that he pass this via emergency legislation.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Do we have any questions so far? This is the end of my first section here. The next we're going to go into will be with Tyler Vega, and he's going to be going into the PPE aspect. But any questions before we move on to that?
Not yet.
All right. All right. So we've got Tyler Vega. Again, he is our founder of Washington Bernicrats Coalition, and he has been working on helping to provide some desperately needed PPEs, which is personal protective equipment. He's going to be talking about some 3D printing and COVID responses. Tyler, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so one of the things that struck me was how quickly, the progressive movement became the let's deal with the problem movement. And so I immediately started looking for where I would fit into that. And the biggest gap that I saw was in this personal protective equipment, and it's just gotten worse as time has progressed. Specifically, my group, my loosely formed network, I should call it, is focusing on the face shields and the N95 respirator. Now, the face shield is just probably got a slide there of just the plastic shield that goes in front of your face, so that if somebody coughs on you, the droplets would hit your face mask instead of going into your lungs. And then the N95 respirator is the middle picture is what goes on your face, and it blocks 95% of all particulate matter. And we were told early on that they all needed to go to the hospitals, and there's a reason for that, because you need that protection on the very front lines in the ICU kind of desperately when you're caring for a person who actually has COVID-19. You need to be able to defend yourself. So there is a shortage in and out of the hospitals, and the people are rising up to solve that shortage. The kind of mentality that we're approaching this from, the big guns up top. Let's just not wait for those guys to save us, because we know that that's not the wisest way to go. So we're going to do it ourselves. And the way we're doing this, there are a lot of ways to do it. This face mask that you see over there on the slide is can be made out of just about anything, but ideally the most useful item is the 3D printer. 3D printer can be bought for I've seen them for less than $200, but pretty easy to get a decent one for $210, and you could crowdsource that pretty easily and have it in the mail and it'd be there in a week. And then for 20 bucks worth of materials, and you got to find a filter, you can produce your own N95 mask. It's slow. You can only produce one or two a day, but that one item, once put in the right person's hand, can protect them throughout the pandemic. It's reusable. Ideally, you give them a couple of filters. And basically, that person can, with confidence, do whatever they need to do. And this doesn't just mean nurses, although it's focused on nurses and frontline workers. It's also for people who just want peace of mind to go to the grocery store, somebody who is elderly or sick or dealing with autoimmune disorders. You want to be able to offer them the ability to go do their shopping and be relatively certain that they're not going to die a horrible death. Now, the N95 respirator is very difficult to wear. It makes it hard to breathe. It's uncomfortable. It's not actually for everybody, but it is for those people, for the people who are working in the ICU, for people who are caring for elderly, people who there's any chance that they're sick and are caring for elderly people. All of the home care nurses need the N95. And to illustrate the level of need that we're experiencing, I have a number of friends and family who work on the front lines, and I'm hearing things like, half the nurses get face shields and the other half get N95s because we don't have enough of either. So everybody gets one or the other. That's crazy. And then the other thing I'm hearing from literally everybody is that they're being issued a single reusable N95 mask, and they're expected to use it not only throughout the day, which is already crazy, but indefinitely. So they're using a disposable mask that normally would be used per patient. You would normally put this thing on your face, go see your patient, leave, and then discard the thing. And it's very difficult to sanitize. And anyway, the idea is to fix all that. So there should be links available to. The one link I put in there is to a particularly popular model that's easy to print, and it's the white one that you saw a moment ago. And it just walks you through the steps on how you can do this for relatively inexpensive. For a couple $100, you can start producing these things, and many people are doing it. A quick Google search will yield many options and print designs, and there are lots of people, myself included, who can help guide people on the path. What we want is a global movement to crowdsource a solution to this PPE shortage. Now, the other thing that should be touched on, face shields and N95 respirators are the focus right now, because they're the frontline tools that are the most effective in flattening the curve. We talk about flattening the curve, and we want to be aware of things like, we might see a second wave in wintertime. We might, on the other end of the spectrum, we might achieve herd immunity, where a large enough number of people have beaten the sickness and have antibodies that we can kind of stabilize the situation. In all these cases, you need that protective gear, and what you're trying to avoid is the overwhelming of the systems of the hospitals. The core piece of that puzzle worldwide, and the big shortages, is what's called a ventilator. The ventilator is the thing that's placed into your lungs to actually aerate your body with not pure oxygen, with oxygen, so that you can keep a patient alive who is struggling with very advanced cases of COVID-19. So what I'm getting at here is that the 3D printer can actually make the ventilator now. It's pretty young and it's very advanced stuff, but we can get there as we grow as a community. We want to develop the ability to make more and more of this stuff on the ground, so that we don't have to rely on a failed healthcare system. While we pass Senate Bill 5222, in the meantime, it really is up to us to be the healthcare catch-all, which is crazy, but that's where we're at. So my request is that if you're able to do whatever you can to help, whatever that might be, sewing face masks, and there's a lot of great patterns for face masks and the right materials out there, making the face shield, or if you're a little tech savvy, get yourself a 3D printer, or better yet, call the school, which is currently empty. The high school in your town is empty, and there probably is half a dozen or more 3D printers in that school not being used. 1 degree of separation from you, there is a person who has access to that equipment. If you can get those things printing N95 masks ideally immediately, then we can start to curb this possibility that our systems will be overrun. And this is particularly true in parts of the world that are underserved. So we need to get creative about how we're going to move these masks around. We need to be able to produce in places that are safer, who are less affected now, and get them to places like New York and Michigan, where we're really worried. My guess is we need to move on to the next topic. So I think we have a Q&A, and then we're moving on, right?
Yes. So we do have a Q&A portion right now. I did see here, it says any mask can be reused. This is more of a statement, but maybe you have some information. Any mask can be reused even if it isn't reusable, but it gets saturated over time. And also it's difficult to sterilize, so it shouldn't be shared with anyone. And somebody else, so that was from Tim Sanders, and Al Welsky said masks can be sterilized with UV lights, ? Do you have any information on?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on here. We're using all of our nurses are using reusable gear as permanent gear. It's crazy, and they are very difficult to sanitize. My understanding is that UV light will do the job, and the masks that we're producing with the 3D printers, you can just wipe them down with with whatever, with a wipe, anything alcohol based, or even just soap and water, and you can pull the filter out and discard it, or you could even you could technically sanitize the filter.
But you said reusable, but did you mean disposable? They're using disposable.
We are making reusable masks. The 3D printers, it takes half a day to make one, but it's a reusable mask that will protect one human indefinitely throughout the pandemic and potentially for a long time.
I'm Round asked, is N95 is reusable ? Are they reusable? Are they supposed to be disposable? Do you know?
Their N95 refers to the amount of particulate matter it stops. It's a type of thing. So when I talk about 3D printed N95s, they are reusable. Right now, the vast majority of N95s that are in the world are disposable, but are being used as reusable. And they're being reused even though they're not supposed to be reused. Our nurses are being issued one disposable N95, and they're reusing it not only multiple times per day, but multiple times per week and indefinitely through the pandemic. This is a bad situation that we, the people, need to solve.
So the disposables, they're supposed to be one per patient, correct? And I've heard that they're doing like one per day, and now some are like one per week, and or originally it was supposed to be one per patient use, correct?
I mean,
That's
ideally,
how
it's the reason it's disposable is because you eliminate risk of infection by getting rid of the thing, but our supply is so short and the demand is so high that they are reusing disposable masks an insane number of times, more than they are designed to be reused.
I have heard that they are using a vaporized activated hydrogen peroxide for sterilization, but I haven't heard what the capacity is of that. I know for like homemade masks and masks that the general public should wear, that you can wash those in hydrogen peroxide. Just add, half a cup to your laundry machine, and then once it's dry, completely dry, try and really put it in a glass jar and seal it until you're ready to wear it.
Yeah, I mean, and the answer is yes, and they are sterilizing it. And I think that one of the I believe that UV light is one of the ways they are sterilizing them as well. It's and that's what we have to do right now. That's okay. The idea behind the reusable masks is that they're designed to be reused and they're easy to sterilize. It's a couple second process.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Tyler. Any other questions? I think we've gotten caught up. G. Gibson just, is wanting to say actually soap chemically rips the lipid outer layer of the COVID-19 virus. So yeah, so the soap breaks down the outside layer, and then once the virus is exposed, it dies. The outside layer is what keeps it nice and healthy, and goes into your system and breaks that down. So thank you. Thank you, G. All right, any others? All right. Thank you again, Tyler Vega. I know that we have a lot more information in the links and all types of masks, how to do some at home, what might be better than others. So please look at those resources and take a look at those. All right, next up, we've got our own Courtney Love. Yes, our Courtney Love. She's going to be bringing in some conversations in ways that we can really work together locally as community, um, how mutual aid can really make a difference in your neighborhood. Um, in your neighborhood. Courtney, thank you very much, and go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much. I feel like I should trademark our Courtney Love, like our revolution. So one of the things, our revolution is at its base an electoral work-based group. However, we all are involved in and are passionate about things that are not quite fully electoral. So one of the things we've been developing is the idea of precinct committees. In Washington, we have precinct committee officers. Other places have precinct committee um, captains, etc. There's a variety of versions, but the precinct is the smallest uh, district, the smallest political district of a political mapping system. We then have legislative districts, congressional districts, states. We also have counties. So precincts have about 1,000 voters, 1,000 households per precinct. We have these precinct committee officers here in Washington, but very few of us have precinct committees. So we've been talking about building up precinct committees, and it has a little something for everyone. And so the big idea is that there are two positions of representation and communication, pre-committee officer and the neighborhood council liaison. Then there are three positions minimum of direct action organizing, mutual aid, sustainability, and emergency preparedness. In Washington, we have community emergency response training, and that's the CERT. Now, in this current time, we are really focusing on the mutual aid aspect. So when we are here on the news is to isolate yourself, but check on your neighbors. So it's still socially acceptable to check on our neighbors, and it is right to be neighborly. So go to your neighbors. Uh, there is a link in the box below. It's about pods. Pods is not my favorite description, but I feel like pods can be the paperwork on the pods gives you a good introduction on how to like what to discuss with your neighbors, and then and also they pods are promoting smaller groupings, 30 to 50 people or less, or breaking up the groups that large. So but uh, because we're politically and electorally aligned, I like to talk about it at the precinct level. So but the options they suggest are very great ones to go by. When you introduce yourself, I find this to be true when I'm door knocking. When you introduce yourself as a neighbor, hey, I'm your neighbor, I live over here, like instantly the barriers go down. Now, in the time of COVID, knock and back away from the door. In fact, I'm going to discuss a little bit about phone ways to get phone lists. But introduce yourself as a neighbor, tell them a little about yourself, then talk to them about how they are in regards to COVID. This is a great introduction to neighborhood community building. There's something very tangible right now to base this work on. Ask them, what their needs are, what their resources are. If they have an excess of resources, that's can share, if they have skills they can share. Do they need to be more insulated by community to protect them? Are they more vulnerable than the average person? Um, so go through that, document, make a spreadsheet, uh, and then what's important to share with me and others about your health. So are there dietary restrictions? Where do you pick up your prescriptions? What clinic do you go to? Would you like to share a family contact with me? That sort of thing. We need to be supporting each other through the worst of this. And people are, if they get sick in their homes and there's no one to check on them nearby, then they might not make it to the hospital. So it is on us to build these neighborhoods and these communities up. So there are other resources within the pod link, but uh, I
There's
like.
great contact or great form letter in there that people can print out, and it's kind of fill in introducing yourself as a neighbor, and
Yep.
gathering that information. Sorry, but it's a
Yeah. Yes. So
template.
that you don't actually have to door knock. You can maybe, or you don't have to stay. You can back away safely with leaving the information. I think that paper still might harbor virus. I've worked in a hospital, but I'm not a COVID expert, so I don't want to assume paper is safe. However, it is a great resource. So within your precincts, usually when I think of mutual aid, it's persistent capitalist-based problems. Um, but then, and when I think sustainability, I think about it in regards to the environment. And then when I think of emergency preparedness, I think of violent natural, in the land of earthquakes and volcanoes. But right now, like all of these are really coming in to play at once. Emergency preparedness, sustainability. So we need to be growing our gardens, and the mutual aid. So it's really important to build up your team. And there are some also in the box below, there's links where to find permaculture. Permaculture, I like to say, well, it's a perhaps a bit bastardized quote of Toby Hemingway, who is passed now, but permaculture is the action arm of the sustainability movement. And so when you say, I want to live a sustainable life, then we have to be doing agriculture, food production with permaculture. Now, richsoil.com, Paul Wheaton's website, is a great resource for permaculture across the board. Toby Hemingway is a really good resource for urban and suburban permaculture. But both are resources good for all levels of skill and environments. I get a little distracted thinking about Toby Hemingway. His book Gaia's Garden has just been so influential in my life. But square foot gardening is recommended if you have nothing else but a box and some soil, just like it's seeds in the ground. Just get it done. No time better than the present. And then let's see. We've got, but the difference between urban and rural is going to be different. The good thing about permaculture is that it's so often it is about the right solution for the right environment. So permaculture is vast in its scope, and you apply what you need to this as the situation and the environment demands. The other thing we have in Washington, especially, is community-supported agriculture opportunities. There's links for that in the box below. Locally, I know we have food is free projects. So all over Tacoma, we have tables popping up where excess produce is being laid out for free. And of course, we have food banks that are being overburdened right now. The methods by which they receive their food have been by this as well. That is why it's really important that we step up and increase our own food production. When going neighbor to neighbor and documenting resources, please remember to include uh, soil, soil space. If they have access to soil, and that is a resource. If, oh, I don't have anything, you have soil, let's use it as a neighborhood, as a community. And I recommend thinking of things not only as microclimates. I like to discuss microclimates. So not only can you make a small microclimate in your yard, but your yard is a bigger part, is a part of a larger microclimate. And so I think that we have a lot of potential that we can do with gardening in an urban area, and we can do far more to increase food security. And the time is now. There's seed banks. There's a link regarding seed banks, and there are resources throughout Facebook land and beyond, local groups supporting each other in gardening. And I have recently moved, and I am looking for my seed stash right now. So that, I think, covers the bulk of what I have to say right now. But meet your neighbors and plant some gardens, and share your skills while staying safe.
We have great links in our descriptions down below that'll be shared out of mutual aid links. I mean, it breaks down everything you can possibly think of, trying to find help for. Um, if not, we, it's a living document, so you can just put in any updates. There's also one out there too that you can find. It's in our links, and it's by state, so it'll break down mutual aid groups within that state in certain areas that are there already. So if you have a mutual aid group building up, go ahead and submit it through there so it can be linked, because there's like 7 or 8 in Washington State, but most of them are up in Seattle area. So you can go to there, see if there's one near you to join. Otherwise, we'll help build those up. Courtney, we have a question for you. When you're talking about a committee, you're talking about, probably a group of what, 4 or 5 people. What kind of things can be broken up, instead of, like you said, there's so many things that are needed? Do you have like ideas of, does somebody look at the permaculture piece? Does somebody look at, gathering
Yes.
information? How does that look as far as a committee coming together?
Well, my suggestion is that one person, that people follow their passion and take a leadership role in what is most inspiring to them. Uh, right now, I feel like most of us are inclined towards the mutual aid angle, making sure that our neighbors are cared for. But yes, I'd say that each person should take a singular role. It is a flexible plan. So if your neighborhood says we need someone who takes leadership in this area, then create that. That's it's very flexible. But I do recommend a minimum of 5 positions. Someone or a team of people who rotate and go to the neighborhood council meetings. Someone who is your official elected precinct committee officer, who engages with the party and represents you to the party and helps vote leadership on your behalf, representing you. Someone who will take leadership in installing gardens, managing, watching food production on a larger scope, in garden installations in um, willing yards with less than willing bodies, perhaps. I do know people who have yards but no ability to maintain a garden. So I suggest that whomever that is also making sure that there's a beekeeper. I'd like to see a beekeeper in every precinct. And then the emergency preparedness, CERT trained people or person. It's likely that each one of these people will have then a team of people who are inclined towards those actions as well. There are people who have suggested self-defense, be it community or individual self-defense, and that could be under the emergency preparedness, or it could be its own leadership position. So a very flexible idea, and this is about bringing. You should not be doing all of it on your own. This is about building up a relationship with your neighbors, community, to help spread this and share this and maintain this.
Excellent, thank you. There is one question here from Al Welski that wasn't brought into Tyler's, so we're just going to catch up on this. So, can sanitized masks be stored in Ziploc bags?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. Make sure it's sanitized, and you probably want to make sure it's dry if you use any kind of wet sanitation, but that should be fine.
I need to throw a disclaimer in here. Follow the CDC guidelines, because although we're all pretty well read and things, we don't want to purport to know everything to the level of its accuracy. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would suggest never reusing. I'd say if you've sanitized something, you put it into something that's clean and not been used again before.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You can take the food handler's permit quiz or test through your health department, at least in Pierce County online now. And that will give you a basic understanding of cross-contamination and traditional food temperature safety zones, which is good to have in general in any case. But I'd say, as somebody who's been in food service and in the healthcare industry, it's your first introduction to basic germ management.
Thank you. Barbara Bartleson says, so much essential info. Hard to know where to start. Love your organizing ideas. Thank you, Barbara. Does anybody else have any questions or thoughts regarding mutual aid in your neighborhoods, building locally and connecting?
Start with your neighbors.
Well, yes, neighborhoods. Start with your neighbors.
No more questions yet, but if they do pop up, I will put them in the stack so they will get responded to. And I want to thank Al Waski for the $5 super chat. We much appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, please hit the like button and share button. Make sure this gets some good traction. We know it's all really essential information. And part of what we really want to do is give people a new sense of purpose in this crisis. And I think that's really important.
Exactly. Thank you.
Just had a question pop up from Jay McCure, and let's see if it's in the stack here. Yes, it is in the stack. There you go.
All right, from Jay McCure. Can we do anything about our national taxpayer-funded PPE stockpiles being sold for profit to the highest bidder anywhere in the world? Oh, very good question.
Change the system.
Vote them all out.
Yep.
Vote them all out. You know, this is like general strike talk too, you know.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything we can do in reaction to what has happened, aside from ensuring they know how
we feel
that we are. But then I think the next thing is that we have to replace the people who did it.
Right. And so that's kind of why, you know, like Tyler talked about, and what one thing that Tyler's always been great at doing is really trying to find the cracks and filling those. And it is really about us. We're not being provided with what is necessary. So it is up to us. So find a crack and fill it. There's many.
I also just want to add too, I've seen some articles about Trump asking like 3M to stop selling supplies overseas. And while that immediately addresses this question as one of those pieces, it's one of those situations where we're looking at a very dangerous trade war that could happen, which would highly, highly impact food supply. So worldwide food supply as borders are shut down is a really real and dangerous situation. So as far as I know, our actual stockpile is not being sold to anybody, but actual manufacturing pieces are being sold. So the stockpile issues that I've heard about on the federal level are because there's a breakdown between states and the federal agencies, because we have not put the resources into our public health system to be able to deal with an actual emergency. So they didn't like have addresses to send the ventilators to at the state levels when the states put out the call and needing it. So that's one of the many breakdowns that's, really fueling this situation, is our country has not taken these steps to not only ensure our health, but the systems that we have in place are just currently very broken, which is why we are tirelessly trying to change them.
Exactly. And why we're coming in as our revolution too, because we all know that, this virus is one thing and we're all coming together, fighting for mutual aid, looking to protect ourselves. But ultimately, it will take all of us to start changing the way that our political system is running. It's just not working for us. And so there are plans in doing that. And it is starting at the local level, of course, pushing at all levels. But, everything is political. It just is. And if this doesn't show it, this crisis that we're in, I don't know what will. So go ahead.
This certainly does need to be a motivator for us to, like, oh, we have realized that these things are essential. Healthcare, housing, incomes, food, education. All right, that we're going to make sure that that happens from now on. That these are not um, afterthoughts, and we have to define what the future will look like. What do we want it to look like moving forward? This is our time to define that and demand it and create it.
One of our favorite candidates also was, I heard him today talking, and the situation is we've been paying for these programs all along. They're just going into our military budget. So it's not new money. It's not how we're going to pay for it. We have been paying for it. It's just about reprioritizing and rearranging the circumstance.
Exactly. And I like Barbara's statement. Yes, vote them out. Thank you, Barbara. Barbara, we totally agree.
Yeah, Barbara's got a good question coming up. I'm just waiting for it to load here.
Oh, okay. Then after these couple questions, we're going to move into Amber's segment. You're going to get a lot of information. I know we're blowing through a lot of this information tonight, and we can do more, in-depth shows on this. Look out for our armchair series and all of that. This is just to show you there are lots of resources out there. You're not alone, no matter what group you identify as in our country, and then ways to do something about it. All right, so question from Barbara Bartelson. Have you heard that MSM and establishment is recommending we use handkerchiefs and rubber bands for masks? Yes, I have. And there's lots of tutorials on how to do your own makeshift masks.
There are masks that will reduce your transmission should you be sick, and there are masks that will prevent you from becoming sick. I'd say prioritize the second one, but deal if you only have the first.
And we also, want to make sure everybody knows that these cloth ones that we're making, aren't 100% effective. And you want to definitely, you have to wash them as soon as you get back in the house. You don't want to reuse any of the cloth ones. The virus can get stuck, in there. I think, Tyler, you have a little bit more information about that piece, don't you? Remember we talked about it before.
Yeah, well, the basic concept is something is better than nothing. They're saying now that cotton is like cuts down your risk by 50%, and a bunch of groups have gone around and started testing stuff. The last one, these are unofficial tests. So this, again, we're not claiming to be medical experts here, but some people were pretty thorough about testing different materials, and at the very top end was things like surgical masks and vacuum cleaner HEPA filters, like the kind of stuff we're going to put in our 3D printed masks. But the one that came up big was the blue shop towel, the one that you see when you go to get your oil changed. That blue shop towel apparently is kind of the most readily available, best kind of what do you call it, hack the system kind of a face mask. And so if you're making masks, and you should, ideally people who can should, and we should be wearing them to decrease all of our risk and flatten the curve. Look at that material. I don't think we did a slide for it, but it's just that you'll recognize when you see it. They're reusable. And it's the kind of thing where you can wear it out, come back in, immediately stick it in the laundry and wash your hands, wash it again and use it again. And it's a very simple way to very effectively flatten.
And we did get a link in there for everybody.
Yeah, there is a link on Blue Shop Town Mask, because I saw that too, Tyler. And I don't think we've talked, but it is showing to help block more than any of the other so far. And they're still doing more tests on it too, but that does look to be the best right now. Any other questions?
Not at this time.
All right. Okay, so next we have Amber King. Amber is actually going to be kind of talking about a bunch of different things all up in hers. Budget is one of them, and talking about some vulnerable groups and things out there for them. Thank you, Amber, for joining us tonight. Go ahead and take it away.
Certainly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Hope you guys are getting some good information and can share this out, and we can keep expanding upon it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of our vulnerable populations and how we can help support them right now. And my wonderful friend down at OSU, Emily Yates Dorr, wrote a great article. It's in MS Magazine, and that is also in the notes below that you can link to. And it's talking about the misnomer of the stay home, stay healthy message that keeps being put out state by state, and that's not really an accurate situation, and that it's actually very dangerous from a public health standpoint, because that assumes that we all have a home, and that assumes we are all healthy to begin with. And most of us in America know that that is absolutely nothing farther from the truth, from reality. So I would like to work on us rebranding that to being stay connected and stay safe. And that's figuring out how to connect with your community and how we can stay safe. So we know that in times like this, especially when, we're isolated and we, are not in our normal routines of things, that people without homes are going to be in much graver danger. They have a very vulnerable network that they rely on, and obviously a lot of that has been shut down now, as well as, immigrant populations. We've got tons of thousands of immigrants locked up and a huge prison population, and they need our support right now. So there's a concerted effort, especially in Washington state. There's links available, and it's also translated in Spanish, which is fantastic, about defunding hate. And I find this very momentous on the death of Martin Luther King that we're having this show to talk about how we can end hate in the United States, and that this is a perfect opportunity to reject the ICE funding and ICE using this excuse to put more people in jail. They've already passed laws to make it so that you are held indefinitely, and we know the danger and the unsafe and unhealthy situations these people are already in to begin with. There was $8.4 billion in the 2020 fiscal year budget for ICE, and over half of that was solely for detention funding. So now is a perfect time to demand that that be stopped. We know the unsafety of it. We know there's ways, there's links. We can end this right now and here. Free the children that are in cages and make our communities and our country able to function again. One of the biggest issues as far as food security is we have a very large immigrant population that has been making our food supply and picking food in our fields for many, many years that we have completely ignored. And now that's going to be a really big problem, especially now. We know that immigrant communities are afraid to get testing, they're afraid to have bills, and that ICE is using this emergency to lock people up. So in the resources links, there's an entire graphics area, there's letters, there's contacts. Again, there's some great Spanish translation that people can use all across the country. You just switch out the Washington State representative contact information with your own states, and we can really make a big splash, I think, in the terms of how we end this, but also work on the rebranding of it, because I think that's really important. And know that we are not all with homes and we are not all healthy, and that we need to make that a bigger priority. So I hope you guys are able to use that. I also just wanted to talk a little bit about mental health resources. And part of this is because we know that in times like this, you know, sexual and domestic abuse rises. There's huge amounts of anxiety, big time stress. People are losing their jobs, and we're cut off from our normal outlets of being able to deal with that. So I would hope that we could get to a place where we can work on our mental health. And I gave a ton of resources. Massachusetts Hospital has some amazing links. They have everything from how to help mindfulness behaviors to how to support your, you know, frontline working staff. They have pages and pages. They have free PTSD testing that you can go through an online course and help people with PTSD through this. There is recovery options of AA has moved basically to online meetings. So there's resources for those. And it's also a really important time to talk about this with your children. And a lot of kids, or especially I know I have teenagers and preteens, and they are very social creatures. It's that time in life, and they do not know what to do with themselves. And sometimes families are separated. This has caused a lot of, you know, anxiety in that issue. And so it's really important that we sit down and we talk to people, that we put together our emotional support system, and make sure that we are listening to people as we go through this process. Make sure you develop your daily routine as best you can, and try and pay attention to more mindfulness practices. And if you can, find that creative outlet, whether it's something as simple as journaling, art. I know a lot of people have been doing a lot of spring cleaning, but there's ways that we can use this scenario to not only reshift our mental health focus in this country, but also individually and as family units. That's another piece, because the family unit gets stretched when we're all of a sudden locked in our houses together, if we are lucky enough to have a house. So finding some of these resources to be able to support one another, support our communities, support our neighbors in this time is really important. It's a great time to reach out. I know I set up a family Zoom meeting for my family. We have a huge family all across the country, and we've never done anything like that until now. And so there's a lot of resources and training that's being offered. People are putting things on free, but we want to make sure people aren't just drinking all the wine in the house and watching Netflix the entire time. We know that this is going to be a longer situation than they're putting out right now at the moment, and we want to be in the best situations possible. So there's some other great resources. One of my favorite, actually, I learned about from the Bernie and Willie Nelson family event that they had, and it's by the artist Jewel, who was another famous Alaskan, and it's called Jewel Never Broken. And for anybody that's dealing with anxiety, young or old, it's a fantastic resource. There's a link to it in the rundown. I hope you can check it out and share that with people in need, because I think that's definitely become our biggest health crisis, overtaking obesity this year as the biggest problem in our country right now. And situations like this will definitely fuel that. There's also Therapy Tribe. If you do need serious mental health connections with a counselor during this time, Therapy Tribe can put you in touch with people. And I also do medical billing, so I know that the National Institute of Health and offices of healthcare have put out chargeable billable codes so that they can continue business in a telehealth way for mental health, which is really cool that they've done that. So also, I just love this great artwork that I found online. It's a great time to explore your creative side. So, you know, whether it's starting a yoga routine or being able to work on some of those pieces that you maybe haven't done, or just even a refocusing of priorities. I think it's really a great opportunity time to be able to have these conversations, talk to your kids, get your kids doing art, get your neighbors, the elderly. I know my grandmother with Alzheimer's loves her artwork time. So it really does have a lot of help that it can provide us, especially in a time like this. So next I want to talk a little bit about some of the financial aspects of this. And one of the major reasons that this is causing such anxiety in our country right now is we do live paycheck to paycheck, and we're seeing huge amounts of money being shifted to Wall Street and to corporations, and our neighbors, are not receiving any assistance. Unemployment in Washington state right now has jumped 44% this week. I know the national number was like 6.6 million. I'm sure that's going to keep climbing, especially as this situation gets worse. I've heard of healthcare workers now being laid off because they don't have the budget to keep non-essential employees that were maybe doing more elective or daytime procedures. And because that revenue has ended, they're laying off departments one by one. So qualified, trained healthcare workers are now becoming the unemployed. So it's really starting to hit a bunch of different aspects that we may not have always really thought about. And so this kind of gives you just a nice checklist of what it means in Washington state. There are a million different scenarios. I've also been told that, and it's on their website for the state of Washington, that a lot of these resources that were passed with the CARES Act will not be available till mid-April. They will be effective April 1st, but most of us here in Washington, if you were laid off, happened at the beginning of March. So it really doesn't provide you any coverage during that time, which is really unfortunate, and that's not being addressed. We still don't have a really good accurate time frame on when any stimulus money is going to come our way, but I thought I'd just keep this resource up for people to see an example of when you're eligible. And we know lots of people are ineligible for unemployment. Either they work multiple part-time jobs or they're self-employed and they haven't been paying into the system. So it's really important to look at what's available in your area. They are doing this state by state. And then there's also, of course, the federal CARES Act, and that's the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, which there's links to as well. And that's more of the payroll tax, paid family leave extensions and expansions. And those are basically the two aid packages that Congress has passed for us so far. So it's CARES and the FFCRA. So there's lots of other options and ways that you can get good information. The myfinancialgoals.org has some great information. It's kind of compiled everything available in one spot. It is a third party, so there are a few things that are not my particular cup of tea, just as a disclaimer. But I wanted to be able to give you one place where you could find a bunch of different resources for either self-employed business or depending on your situation. There's obviously tons of different financial situations out there. So there's also resources for HR, which is a great opportunity. And that is, it's basically an HR website. So it has contracts for people to work from home. It has some of the templates that maybe small businesses, medium-sized or large businesses might need in the coming months as things happen. And so it offers just a really good overview of some of the things. It also explains things like what is FEMLA, what is, each aid program in its own state kind of has different rules. So I thought that was a really great resource to add. We've got, of course, Rent Strike 2020 has a wonderful list of demands that are being asked for. And part of that is solidarity, because we've heard talk of, possibly going to a global dollar, and the UN has put a huge document out. I personally haven't had a ton of time to review the entire thing, but one of the pieces it does talk about is shifting to the economy and the dollar out of the picture, which would obviously impact our entire country and our entire GDP. So we need to look at what's being done at a international level as well financially. And then we also need to look at our own resources and budgeting. We see food becoming scarce, resources becoming scarce, and we want to make sure that we're protecting each other. Thankfully it's springtime, so we do have some time to prepare for what could be coming in the next few months. And the rent strike is also part of solidarity, especially if you live in an apartment building. It's got ways to organize with your neighbors. And the solidarity around this is really important because it's not about I can't pay for my rent. It's about what about all the other people that can't? And if we wait because we can pay our rent this month, but in 3 months we can't, that's the type of time frame that we might lose to get real traction on ending mortgage payments, canceling student debt, canceling credit card payments, and freezing mortgages. Because right now, none of they've changed some of the laws, but they haven't changed that rolling bill that's happening. I know my own electric company sent me a letter saying that they weren't going to send out meter readers because it was too dangerous. So instead, they were going to take a combined combination of the last few months, which happens to be winter and the most expensive months of the year, and they're going to be averaging out my usage until they could put people back on the ground. So there's a lot of situations like that where we know they're not going to be helping people or be accurate. And we don't have a lot of safeguards in place to protect people because of the emergency orders. So I also just wanted to touch in on educational resources and family resources. There is a lot of different links, obviously, the websites. Some school districts are being able to do this a lot better than others, but there's amazing resources for online applications and kind of learning through how to teach through the digital age, what I think is really important. There's a great resource for unschooling your child, which includes everything from you know, free range kids to outdoor learning school. There's a lot of different ways that we can retrain our children how to think for themselves and how to pick their own learning path, which is not an option when you're in public school. Sunrise Movement has an amazing school that they've started in activism and learning about the environment, as well as Rapid Shift. These are kind of for the older set of children, I would say up into college to adult. If there's something that you would like to learn, rapidshift.net has a million topics and a ton of resources. It's really incredible. They talk a lot about organizing. They talk a lot about alternative fuel, alternative currency systems, government, civics. It's really amazing. I hope you can check it out. And then for the younger children, there's the National Association for the Education of Young Children is your national child care resource center. And so for the 0 to, I would even say as far as 3rd grade, that is going to be an amazing resource. There's tons of links. We know there are some child care facilities that are still open, and so they have inherently special needs that are going to be addressed at this time. But there's also a lot of parents that aren't used to being home with their children for 24/7. And that's a huge situation that we need to be able to support each other, give resources, and be able to know that, we don't have to do everything perfectly. We can just do our best and try and do what we can. And the more that we can collectively come together during this time and make changes, that we're going to have the best outcomes in our future. So that's most of what I have to talk about.
Beautiful. So is everybody overloaded yet? There's so much going on that we have to try to make sure that, again, nothing falls through the cracks. And we just touched on a few subjects, but the resources within, the YouTube, and we do have a link to a document that if you guys would like, we can get that sent out as well. Any questions for Amber, or actually anybody at this time, but maybe first Amber with her section. Looks like Lael White says, great info. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lael, for watching and commenting. Another one from Barbara Bartleson. Hi, Barbara. I love how interactive you are. You keep us so entertained in there. She says, wow, so many great links. Tons in our rundown for sure. So again, in YouTube, if you drop down the little arrow for the description, all of these links are in there, and we didn't touch on all of them. So there's a lot of information to to go through. And if there's anything really in particular that you want more time on from us, just let us know. We do have other shows that we can get more in depth with these, all these different things that we're talking about tonight.
I just want to jump in here and publicly acknowledge you guys did a terrific job on that rundown. I've been working with this system for like 3 years. We all have, and this is probably one of the most complete and comprehensive rundowns that I've seen to date. It's just great, and you guys are just going to even make it better if that's even possible, but you guys will do it.
Thank you, Oz. And
Aw.
did I forget to mention Oz in the beginning? I had it down in there and
Shh.
so my bad. So as you guys know, our engineer in chief, so he is our man behind the curtains. I do want to make sure that we give him a shout out as well. None of this would happen without him. We know him as Oz, otherwise known as Rick LaFave online. But thank you, Oz, for making this possible and keeping us in check.
And thank you to Franklin for running our Restreams and helping with other tech needs and our databases. I would like to also add that we are working on some independent federated media with all of our different media partners. And of course, this is on our favorite UpHill, but we also have Roar Media. And we are also working on obtaining a radio station. So you'll find information for that as well. What we need at this time is we need to protect our privacy, and we need to maintain that we have free available access to information right now. And we're seeing a lot of privacy laws and a lot of kind of cramping down on internet. You've seen, maybe you got one of the Facebook apology letters, because they're using this opportunity to turn on AI and block our ability to communicate with each other in a free and fair way.
Excellent, thank you. I do see some in here who are really liking all of this comprehensive information. I did put it into one document, like I said, so you can share it outside of YouTube. I just put the link in the YouTube thread, but we will also spread it around on Facebook as well and get it out to all the other destinations. Or you can email us at washingtonbernicrats@gmail.com and we will forward that to you. But we broke it down to a smaller link for bit.ly. So it's bit.ly /ROR pandemic 2020. And that is in the regular chat, live chat thread right now. And we'll add it, into as one easy document to share. If you have anything to add to it, I did open up the comments, so just comment and we can add it to our Growing Washington document, and which hopefully will be added to the other big documents for nationwide support. But don't be afraid to send us any information you want added into that. We'd be more than happy to do that.
And you can also join us tomorrow for our weekly Sunday phone bank. So every week we have 2 phone banks in Washington State, and they are Sundays from 3:30 until 6, and then on Saturdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
And you can sign up to those through our Mobilize links again in the description here. 3:30 today on Sundays is the training piece. And then it's 4 to 6 is when we're calling Washington State. And same with Fridays. There's no training piece in front of that one, but we are calling Washington State. So what we are liking to do is just reaching out to each other, checking in with each other. How you doing? Is there anything that's needed around there? Maybe talk to them about these, mutual aid, neighborhood, precinct, committees. That's the word I was looking for. Committees. And then there's also join us daily. We meet at 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Again, our Mobilize link, you can sign up for those. We check in with each other and work on things as needed. And then on Sunday evenings, we have a 7:30 meeting for Washington State specifically, but we won't get mad if you want to join in, if you don't belong in Washington. And then Saturday nights we have these town halls. So there's always something going on. And the more you join, the more we can get things done. Many hands make lighter work. So please feel free to join in on any of those. Any other questions out there, Oz? We have a little bit of my time available. So we want to make sure that we get any questions done. Oh, there's talk of a radio station, right? What is the radio station's name?
It's KROC, and that link should be in our rundown, but I will try and get a copy to you right now in the chat.
It's KORC. Sorry.
Close.
That's all right. That's all right.
KORC.
Cork Radio. K-Ork. Cork.
Cork. KORC. Looks like Mary Jo Poole says, thank you. Good show. Lots of hope resources. I like that. Hope resources. It does. We do need some good amount of hope in this pandemic that we're fighting right now.
I will say that if you are not a precinct committee officer, there's certainly a good chance that you don't have one, and you can become appointed precinct committee officer and then run in May. But once you're a precinct committee officer, you get the phone numbers to a lot of the people in your neighborhood, and it's a good place to start with that neighborhood outreach. And if you do have a precinct committee officer, then be sure to call them first.
And that's a great segue into next week's town hall, which the topic is going to be running for PCO and how to become a delegate.
Yes, perfect. It's almost like we talked.
Did you plan this out a little bit? Maybe. If there is a subject that we're not touching on, please let us know. We have more than happy to help delve into it and bring other people on, experts on, to delve into more, information on any of these subjects or any ones we haven't touched on yet at all. Washington Berniecrats, that's WASHINGTON. BERNIECRATS, that's Washington Berniecrats @gmail.com, and we will take that in consideration.
Yeah, tomorrow morning, Larry Taylor is going to have a great show. It's Progressive Oregon, PDPR, and we're going to try and give the DNC some demands. Tune in, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Should be a great show.
All right, nothing further. Thank you all again for taking time out of your day and evening, I guess now, and joining us on our show. My time is so messed up right now. I don't know about anybody else's out there, but I can't keep track of anything anymore. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you will see us again next weekend. See you then. Say goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Stay safe, stay connected.
And then Oz will take us out with some music.